Thank you, Mr Chair. How typical of this minister to get so personal in this debate. I find that completely without dignity that he would speak about other members of the House like this. I mean, I disagree very strongly with Hilary Calvert with much of her language that has been used today in this debate, but I don't think there is any place for that kind of personal, nasty attack. And it doesn't, certainly, not only is it undignified, but I think it belittles the minister to be engaged in that kind of behaviour in the House over an issue that is so serious and which there is no doubt that everyone has a very strong view, even if you disagree with that view. So I want to address part two of this bill briefly. One of the issues that has come up is in Clause 11, where there's a statement, and I think it's made later on in the legislation as well, that neither the Crown nor any other persons is capable of owning the common marine and coastal area. I repeat, neither the Crown nor any other person owns or is capable of owning the common marine and coastal area. So that is a legal fallacy that doesn't actually exist in New Zealand law. The process of colonisation was one where the two principles of imperium and dominium were brought to Aotearoa through the colonisation by the British Crown. Imperium being the right to rule, and dominium being the right of the Crown to have underlying ownership over all the land. And over time, effectively, that right has been passed on through various systems and constitutional niceties, not quite so niceties, such that it now belongs to, in effect, belongs to the government exercising it on behalf of the Crown, their ownership right. So when a law says that nobody owns the coastal marine area, it's just not true. It's just factually incorrect because the ownership of Aotearoa through the colonisation process rests with the state and with the executive. So having this kind of absolute rubbish in legislation is bad enough that people are passing legislation that just doesn't tell the truth about the factual basis of land ownership in this country. It's a historical fallacy. But it also leads me to challenge the Māori Party, and and I would ask that the Māori Party be prepared to stand up and defend the statement that they made earlier today, that they are proud of this legislation, that this bill is a Māori Party bill, and to argue how they can say first that this bill is a Māori Party bill, they're proud of it and they will vote for it, when we have this legal fallacy here around ownership, when the whole basis of Māori issues around the foreshore and seabed is that there are still, or could still be, areas of extant customary title as set out in the common law, and that is ownership. That is ownership, and that's what customary title, tikanga title, is about. It is about ownership. Now, the tikanga way of describing and talking about the responsibilities of ownership are different, and Māori have tried to get that message through to government and to members and to the public, that it isn't so much about the right to do with it as you choose, but the responsibility to care for it for the future. Now, so the concepts of what ownership mean might be quite different, but at the heart, when you're having to use English language to describe these concepts, ownership is an issue. And Māori have come to the Select Committee and to the panel and to the Select Committee in years gone by saying that they want their right restored to go to court to assert their customary title ownership in tikanga terms. So how then, if that is what Māori have said, and that was the premise on which the Māori Party was built, was respect for that principle, respect for that call by Māori to assert their customary title ownership in tikanga terms, how then can the Māori Party in any kind of conscience stand here and say that they are proud of legislation that specifically strips them of that right? Because this bill says no person is capable of ownership of the customary marine area. And yet Māori have said over and over they want the right to be able to test to assert their customary title ownership in tikanga terms. Now, I think the Māori Party owes it, given their votes are the votes that decide whether this legislation proceeds, whether this... Mr Chair? Thank you, Mr Chair. Whether or not the Māori Party vote will determine whether this bill proceeds, and therefore whether the confiscation of this land and that right, the extinguishment of that right, continues. And I think they owe it to Māori who've supported them and whose call the Māori Party is here to respect, to explain how they can now be voting against the rights of Māori to assert their customary title ownership in the tikanga terms and in the fullness of those tikanga terms. It's at the same time that we're debating this, I have to say, there is a hikoi that is making its way through the country. There's a large number of Māori who have made their way from the north. I understand that they are at Hatupetera this evening and are making their way into Tamaki Makaurau tomorrow. Their premise of this hikoi, the hikoi on which the Māori Party was based, the hikoi where Tariana Turia in previous years went and met its parent, its mother hikoi, if you like, some years ago, was based on the same premise that the foreshore and seabed should not be confiscated, that Māori rights should not be extinguished, and not one more acre. Not one more acre is the call of this hikoi, just as it was of the last hikoi. And those people, those whānau who are making their way through the country to demonstrate their opposition to this bill deserve an answer. They deserve an answer from their representatives in this Parliament. They deserve an answer from those who have said in the past that they would stand up and fight for their right to have their rights recognised, to oppose the confiscation and extinguishment of those rights. Those people are entitled to an answer as to why the Māori Party is prepared to take those rights away. It's not easy. This is difficult, particularly for Māori and for Māori MPs, just as it was last time. This is a difficult debate, and it's difficult especially hearing some of the very crass comments that we've heard in the debate tonight. There's no doubt about that. But it is our people who deserve to get answers. Our people deserve to be told by their representatives here why they are voting for a confiscation and why they are voting to remove any capacity for the ownership that they have been asserting now since 2003, or before that actually, through the Ngāti Apa decision for many years now, for a decade or more. So, sir, I'm asking the Māori Party to take a call and to answer the question. Well, Shane Jones shouts out good luck, and he's quite right. I'm not holding out a lot of hope. I certainly won't be holding my breath, as Hilary Calvert suggested we should do from 1840. I won't be holding my breath, but I do think they do owe it to our people, and that if they were genuinely proud, of this legislation, as Rahui Kātini said, they would stand up and defend their position and explain to our people who are marching through the country as we speak why it is that they should be why they have to march at all, why it is that they are supporting this legislation at this time, when the Māori Party knows, and they have said so publicly, that this bill is bad. They've said this bill will not be effective. It does not give justice to our people. So why then would the Māori Party be supporting it? It's why the rangatahi are changing their minds, says Shane Jones. It's why our kuia and kaumātua are so disappointed in their political representation, because we're getting down to the really nub of this issue, that there is customary title that the courts have said could still exist in the foreshore and seabed that predates the colonisation of this country, if you like, and that title should be explored, and that Māori who may believe they may hold it are entitled to go to court to have that heard. And yet the Māori Party is stripping them of that right. There is no doubt that this is very serious. Well, the Māori Party is stripping those people, those hapu who came to us, of that right. And I don't, there's personal to some extent as well. I sat with Tariana Turia in the Foreshore Seabed Select Committee in 2004, and I remember her and I weeping over the harm that was being caused to our people together. I mean, this is not just...
Kelvin Davis.
Chair. Mr. Chair, just before I start,